Welcome everybody to the Mystic Podcast, number 22. Now, if you couldn't already tell, this week due to conflicting schedules, we are recording things separately. Now, originally we weren't going to do the podcast, but we felt there were some important things that needed to be discussed. And so, for me, we wanted, we're still going to talk about things like, what we did, not in terms of other media, but overall, everything in terms of, gaming and, TV and stuff like that have pretty much been the same. I haven't watched anything new, in terms of movies. I haven't watched it. In fact, I didn't watch any movies this week. I didn't play any new games. Same games I played last week. Stuff like that. However, since last week, some three other huge movies have released new trailers that we need to discuss. First was the teaser trailer for Batman vs Superman. Now it was okay. It did exactly what a teaser trailer should do, which is only give you a snippet, and so it was good in that respect. But it's what can you expect when the movie's still like a year out? So the fact that they even came out with a trailer this soon is mainly because the fact that any movie comes out with a trailer so far from its release date is because modern day hype train. People want so it was okay. The next one was a new Fantastic Four trailer, which gives you a better idea of what's been going on or what's going to happen in this movie and what it's going to be like. So it's definitely going to be, it's much better than it was before. The trailer prior to that kind of made it kind of seem dull-ish, so it wasn't as interesting. But at least now we get a better sense of the story, the characters. We get to see some of their powers in action. So it's definitely going to be much more entertaining and got me more hype for the movie. Now, the next one is the trailer, the new Jurassic World trailer, which gives you a much, much better understanding of what it's going to be about. A better plot we're going to see better understanding of the plot and a better understanding of what's to come for us. And the fact that it looks kind of like there's going to be like a war between two sides. And that this war is going to, there's going to be sort of a difference between the, there's going to be one side that's, going to rally behind, Chris Pratt's character, and then there's a bunch of, or should I say dinosaurs that are going to rally behind, Chris Pratt's character. Sorry for the repeating. And, protect the humans. Whereas there's going to be dinosaurs that are going to side with this new dinosaur, which we get a chance to see for the first time. And that, this dinosaur will kind of cause others to not really necessarily side with. I guess you could call it their side, but it's not really their side because they aren't doing anything per se. They're not going to actually do anything to, they are. Sorry, I need to correct that. They are going to do something. They're not going to they're going to fear the dinosaurs. So instead of going up against it, they're just going to go wild. So we get a better sense of the story, and it's got me more hype for the movie. This is going to might be a little long because the second thing I want to talk about is since the last podcast, I came across an insanely awesome One Piece theory. Now you might be saying to yourself, why is he talking about One Piece in the podcast and not in the chapter review or the episode review? Well, that's because this theory doesn't directly relate to the current chapter or to a current episode. It's basically a theory about who are the next Straw Hats. Now you might be saying, everybody thinks, comes up with their own theories about why, this person in the current arc should be a Straw Hat. Well, this isn't, oh, this person's going to join in the current arc. No, this is a long-term theory. Now, as you all know, we need to get some basic things down, and that is this. In the East Blue, Luffy recruited 4 members. In the first half of the Grand Line, he also recruited 4 members. So, even though Luffy said, I want 10 crew members, it was more like at least or about 10 crew members, meaning we need at least 10, but it's probably going to be more than that. Because, I thought this was going to be, when I first got into the time skip and, thought, post-time skips content, and I was like, oh, well, does that mean, since he recruited 4 people in East Blue and 4 people before the time skip, is he going to get another 4 people in a new world? And at first the thought of it was like, do we really have the time to waste on recruiting new members? But I was thinking that unfortunately, as I now realize, I was thinking that in terms of the mentality of, say, for instance, when we had, as an example, Chopper's recruitment arc, where it completely deviated from the saga at the time, which was dealing with Baroque Works. So that whole, Baroque Works saga kind of deviated when we had to go and take, stop at Drum Island and eventually recruit Chopper. Whereas the other ones, they just happened more naturally. Like there wasn't anything else going on, any sagas going on at the moment that you would think it would, things would change. Now, I'm going to start this review. I'm going to start reviewing the way I'm going to review this. The theory is, first off, this is a theory that was posted on orojackson.com by a user named Beck26. Now, it's a long theory, and I'm not going to read everything, but I will give you some certain pieces of information. And hopefully, I'm gonna send the link to Strider to put in the description below. And if he has, you can check out and read every little detail, because there's a lot of information. I'm gonna try and cover the most important things, such as obviously who the 4 people he think they are going to be, and the reasoning behind it, and a little bit about situations, about what the situation behind the recruitment is going to be, and why they fit the mold of the Straw Hat. Now, I'm also going to talk about things like the time, like how, anyway, so, the first things first, but like I said before I'm not going to go through every detail, because to understand certain aspects of this theory, he posts makes reference to his other theories about various things, like the timeline, the rest of the timeline, like how the timeline's going to go for the rest of the arc, or not arc, but the rest of the series. Various other theories about origins of certain characters and whatnot. But I'm just going to focus on what is related to these 4 characters' recruitment and why he feels that, because he goes into a lot of details. Like he does this in a 7-part post. And so before I go any further, I'm gonna start off. Now, the current members are obviously confirmed to be 9 so far. So the honorary members of Vivi and Karu don't count, as well as the ships that they had or have currently do not count. That's right off the bat. Now, because, it has to conclude at least, so, another reasoning behind it, is like, okay, well, it's theorized that it's going to be at least, the fact that, another theory about why it's going to be more than 10 is because, there were 11 members of the Blackbeard Pirates, because they're going to be mirroring You know, because Blackbeard is mirroring, Whitebeard's group. Also, he's saying, well, okay, but if we add 4 more, not including Luffy, that would be 12. So, well, he addresses this by basically saying that, there are certain characters like Nico Robin who might end up teaming up with another one of the Straw Hat members to help fight, one of the Blackbeard guys in terms of that respect. Now, there's also, and plus, there's a lot of other various reasons as to why they think Oda's going to have 11 members or more. Now, here are some other, we have to really understand what the character, we have to go into the character. Oda, as we all know, or at least as a fan you should know, originally planned for the One Piece to only go 5 years. And so, because of that, obviously plans changed. But if he originally was going to do the 5 years, that means obviously the pacing would have been immensely fast. It wouldn't be that deep, and we would have gotten the crew pretty quickly, which means he already had a crew planned in. Now you might be saying, what caught, so that means all the Straw Hats that we have now and all the Straw Hats we will get were originally in the plan. No. According to what this guy says, Nico Robin was a character that was added into the Straw Hats when he decided to make it longer. Why? Because Nico Robin, added the whole point, or was able to slip in. He was basically created to give the Straw Hats as a part of the whole Void Century angle. That wasn't originally planned, but when he added the Void Century in, he needed a Straw Hat that would actually care about that and be able to, correlate with that deep shit. Now, since, obviously Oda had to have the ending the same, we're going to get the Straw Hats to do that. Now, some other things that are going to have to be, there is some other, so because even though Robin wants to find the true history, she doesn't want to change, eliminate the people who erase the history, or, she doesn't want to try and change the world. So that's what also comes into a factor as to who this person believes is going to be his future Straw Hats. Now, here is the point where I'm going to just tell you the names of the 4 crew members this guy believes is going to be joining in the new world. Now, go, listen to everything I have to say, and then, click on the link, read the entire theory before you start judging. Because the 4 people, in order of when they're going to join, are as stated. First, we're going to get Jinbei. Then we're going to get Tashigi. Then we're going to get an Elbath warrior, and then we're going to get a smoker. Now, like I said before, let me try and explain everything. The fact that, since Oda originally planned for it to be 5 years, the characters were already planned. So, when he decided to extend it, he wanted to hint at these characters or introduce them in some way, shape, or form early on in the series, such as Jinbei being introduced, mentioned in Fishman Island, not the Fishman Island, Arlong Park arc, and the fact that in Logtown we immediately got, Tashigi and Smoker, and that, Little Garden we had Elbath talked about. So, now when you look at some of the original drawings of the crew, here was some things. For instance, Usopp was there, Zoro was there, Luffy was there, Nami was there, Brook was there, Chopper was there, and Sanji was there. Frankie, in one of the first drawings, Frankie wasn't there, Robin wasn't there, and so on and so forth. However, another drawing showed, with some more drawing, when we see more of the drawing of, we also see a small, tiny, like, cute shipwright type creature that looks almost like a fishman, and a plant-loving guy that wears a bandana, and was going to be the original planned sniper and was going to be a weapon maker. Now, when you look into everything, obviously some of these characters' attributes were changed to others, such as, Nami's original plan was to be a melee fighter, using a melee weapon such as an axe, with a mechanical arm. Now the mechanical thing went to Frankie, and the shipwright position was Frankie. So certain aspects. Now when you look at certain other things, such as the plant-loving thing went to Robin, whatnot. So when you look at some of what he originally planned, in the original plan there were 3 swordsmen: Zorro, Brooke, and Chopper was originally going to be a swordsman, as well as a chain smoker. But we now no longer have. But since his character was changed, that means Oda must still be planning to have 3 swordsmen and 2 chain smokers. Well, how would that happen? Smoker would be the second chain smoker, as well as Shigi being the 3rd swordsman, and Elbaf Warrior being the one that uses the melee weapon, and we have Jinbei fill in the position of the this way we'll have our Logia, our chain smoker, our second chain smoker, our 3rd swordsman, such as so on and so forth. So, and that like I said, Elbaf Warrior would probably be use the melee fighter that uses an axe. Now, as for the correlation to what makes you think that that these characters are going to join? Why specifically? Well, because there's a pattern. A pattern, you may say. Well, this is where we go into part 2 of his theory, which now, of course, obviously I've already skipped over a bunch of stuff, but part 2 of the theory is the pattern. There's the recruitment pattern, and here's how the pattern works. Now, first, look at the characters. There was Roronoa was the first one. Then Nami was. Then he asked Gaimon, but he declined. Then he had Usopp, Sanji, the Grand Line. He had Tony Chopper, Nico, Robin. He asked Vivi and Karu, but they did not. They declined. Then he had Frankie and Brooke. Now, another thing he noticed was the fact that after they got recruited, this pattern happened of, first they recruited 2 people, asked someone to join, they declined, and then they recruited another 2 people. They encountered someone who was a member of the Roger Pirates. After they recruited Sanji and got to the Grand Line, they met Crocus. Then, after they recruited Brooke, they ended up meeting Silver's Raid League. And so he feels that that's the same thing's going to happen in the New World. We're going to have, and that it's going to follow the same pattern, where the first recruit's going to be a male, the second recruit's going to be a female. We're going to have the next recruit. Then after that, Louis going to ask someone who a legitimate, recruit, not like, oh, Luffy asking the zombies of Thriller Bark join. No, like a legitimate, oh, you should be on our crew, and they decline. Then we're going to have our 3rd recruit person who actually joins the crew, who's going to be a male, and the 4th one also being male. And then after that, they're going to meet a former Roger Pirate. Now, here we go. Here's where. Now, why? Now, in terms of, okay, now that we have the 4 people that he says, Jinbei, Tashigi, Elbaf Warrior, and Smoker, why that order? And what makes him think that these are the characters? Well, it has something to do with the correlation of the first recruits of each area, the first East Blue recruit and the first Grand Line recruit, and obviously similarly with the other. Now Zoro and Chopper. What makes them so similar that he feels that it's going to that's why Jinbei is going to be the first one to join in the new world? Well, both all three characters were introduced. Zoro and Chopper, who have joined the crew, were first introduced. When their character were first introduced, they were tied to something, both literally and figuratively onto something. Zoro was tied to the post in Morgan's base, while Chopper was tied to Dr. Greyot's sleigh. Second, both of them have been either known or had a reputation of being a monster. Kobe describing Zoro as a bloodthirsty devil, and Chopper being called a monster by the villagers of Drum Kingdom. Third, Luffy says something important to them. Luffy recovers Zoro's katanas, whereas Luffy protects Dr. Hirolook's pirate flag on Drum Kingdom. And the fourth thing that they have in common is the fact that in the recruitment arc, they helped Luffy fight a boss who was pretty much hated in his own turf. Meaning, with Captain Morgan being hated by the townspeople and his subordinates, and Wappa was already hated in his kingdom. So, using that, now we'll talk specifically how that deals with Jinbei later. Now, in terms of the second recruit and why it's a female and why he feels it, here are the correlations. Both Nico Robin and Nami were both introduced as enemy of pirates. Nami was introduced as a thief who steals from pirates, and Robin was introduced as Miss Sunday as a part of Baroque Works. Second, they both temporarily joined the crew, and the third thing, there was an instance where Luffy's hat would be involved, and somehow both of them would wear Luffy's hat at one point before they permanently joined. This could also be shown as a sign of foreshadowing as to which female characters would be a recruit. Fourth, the permanent recruitment of these girls occurred after a major saga. Nami joined after the Arlong Park, which was considered the end of the East Blue saga in most cases, whereas Nico Robin joined after the Enies Lobby arc, which ended the whole CP9 saga. Now, the next thing, in this arc, Luffy, the second part of this, the major saga is that in this saga, Luffy and the others need to defeat a major adversary in a rescue type arc that revolves around a time limits type scenario. Luffy, in the Arlong Park arc, Luffy had to be saved before he drowned. They had to save Luffy from drowning before all the other Straw Hats were taken out. Nico Robin, they had to save her before she went through the gates of justice, or they'll never see her again. In correlation to their backstories, both of them lost their mothers to the people who invaded their islands in their backstory. Bellamere being killed by Arlong, and Nico Olivia being killed by the Marines' Buster Call. And, of course, the last correlation is that both of their dreams require them to travel around the world to collect or complete something. Nami wanting to make the world map, and Robin trying to find all the poneglyphs to find Rio Poneglyph and collect the true history. As for the third male recruit, what is the correlation between them? Both were introduced as being troublemakers in their towns. Both recruits are connected to an associate of the former owner of the Straw Hat. Usopp's father being Yasopp, being on the crew of a crew member of Shanks, who had the hat before Luffy, and Frankie's foster father Tom built Oro Jackson for Goldie Roger, who had the hat, who owned the Straw Hat before Shanks. Also, both of them had a group of followers. Usopp having the Usopp Pirates, and Frankie having the Frankie family. Both both at one point had a serious fight with Luffy, and both recruits joined after they got a new ship. Usopp joined Luffy after they got Usopp joined after they got the Going Merry, and Frankie joined after they got the Thousand Sun. Now I'll address what this means for the New World, obviously, later. Next, the fourth recruit, Sanji and Brook. What was it? Both of them were introduced to be holding something that produces smoke. Both were shown in the recruitment arc aboard a floating vessel. Both recruits were either raised or was a member of a pirate or pirate-like group. Of course you're saying, ooh, what is that? Well, the thing producing the smoke was, Sanji was holding hot soup, and that was, giving off smoke. And Brook was holding a cup of tea that was giving off smoke. So, with this, keeping that in mind, that's why it's, and it'll make reference to, so you should start to get in your mind as to some more reasoning as to why the four people that was stated earlier are the reasons why. Now, some other things that Sanji and Brook had in common. Both were shown on a floating vessel. Well, Sanji being on the Baratie and Brook being on the Lumber Pirate ship. Both were part of, a member, or were either raised or were a member of a pirate or pirate-like group. Well, Brook was in a previous pirate crew before he died, whereas Sanji was raised by Zeph on the Baratie, which they claimed that, the chefs here are tough as pirates. So, and they were pirate-like. Next thing that they had similarly, in their recruitment arcs, the Straw Hats crew's new ship was somehow stolen or captured, with Nami taking the merry-go, and in the Sanji's recruitment arc and in Brook's recruitment arc, Thousand Sunny was captured at Thriller Bark. Both recruits are looking to reach a certain part of the sea, Sanji being the All Blue, Brook being Twin Capes, the Sea Lagoon at the Twin Capes. Luffy specifically mentioned and required the filling of the positions, mentioning the cook, talking about the musician. In their recruitment arcs, both have someone holding them back from going out to sea. So, Brook with the loss of the shadow, Sanji with his feeling to need to stay and repay Zeph. Now, of course, these are just some observations, and, but these are just helpful. Now, these are some good things to help pick out, but there's some other criteria. Now, this is criteria, these series are just basic things. We also need a criteria. What about them, their character, makes them? First thing, the potential crew member should be an outcast, whether they be hated in the village or orphaned or some type of troublemaker in their town, like a sore thumb that sticks out. Now here, Zoro, he was a traveling swordsman. Nami was, from what it looked like at the time, that she was hated by her village. But that was, as we all know, was a false. Usopp was, doing his thing with the whole lying. But even though everyone hated him for it, they wanted him to do it. And they somehow liked it. Sanji was, they pretended to, that they didn't like him, even though they liked him a lot. Just like, with Nami, Chopper was pretty much, considered a monster, and he was an outcast. The reindeer wouldn't accept him. The people of Drum Kingdom wouldn't accept him because of his monstrous appearance. So he wasn't even that hard. Nika Robin had nobody. She was the sole survivor of Hajj, so she kind of became an outcast because of that, because she couldn't stay in one place. Frankie, as you all know, was caused trouble around town and actually lived outside on the outskirts of Water 7. So, and Brooke had no one. So, the second criteria is that the potential crew member should at least give a hint that he or she got a dream or inherited will of some sort and a tragic past. That's something that Oda does well. So, we already seen Jinbei's past, so we know that his past is pretty tragic and that he has got a dream or inherited will, but I'll talk about that later. The third criteria for being a potential crew member is that they should at least interact, connect, or have a connection with Luffy and other crew members. Now that usually happens through plot, and both Jinbei, Tashigi, and Smoker have already had a bunch of interactions with Luffy, and it's only been Jinbei so far who's had interactions with the other crew members. So obviously, with the plot, as the plot moves forward, we'll have the other stuff, the other interactions, the other potential crew members will have interactions with the other Straw Hats. The fourth criteria is that Luffy should believe that they are a good person. Well, he already knows that Jinbei's a good person. He even said that Smoker was he doesn't hate Smoker, and probably doesn't hate Tashigi, and eventually when he meets the Elbath Warrior, probably the same thing. The fifth criteria, the aftermath of the supposedly recruitment arc of that potential crew member should involve a situation that forces them to either become a fugitive or not being able to stay in the place they were before, or that they are now free of their burden. It's before. Now this is before they join, but after. So, alright. Now, the Straw Hats, however, have minor things that they, need to consider when predicting crew members. Now, though we'll talk about these things, they are minor stuff and don't necessarily, say, oh, this person is definitely going to be a crew member or not. They are just some things that tend to happen, such as crew positions. Luffy being captain, Zoro being swordsman, Nami being navigator, Usopp is the sniper/cannoneer, Sanji cook, Chopper doctor, Robin archaeologist, Frankie is the shipwright/helmsman because he, drives the ship, and Brooke is the musician. Color theme. That one's a little harder to do, but we do have some colors. Luffy being red, Zoro being green, Sanji being blue, Usopp being yellow, Nami being orange, Chopper being pink, Robin being violet, Frankie being cyan, and Brooke being black and white. So, next, special skills and talents. There's a ton of different things for that. There's also possible gags with current Straw Hats, their quirks, unique personality, and uniqueness of power. Now that we've presented the criteria and the clues about the final four Straw Hats, now we can actually explain each character. Yeah. And by the way, before that, they had all been foreshadowed in the series. Zoro having foreshadowed Chopper and Jinbei, and him, in Arlong mentioning about Chopper's position and talking about at Arlong, and also if you look at the pattern of Arlong or the shirt that he's wearing in Arlong Park, Zoro is. The markings are similar to that of what is on Jinbei's face. And that his line in a certain pattern similar to that of what Zoro said is pretty much what Jinbei's situation is now. How does Nami foreshadow Robin and Tashigi? Well, at one point, you see her, I think it's in Logtown, she's trying on a bunch of outfits, and one of the outfits she tries on is the first outfit we see, or the outfit she's wearing is the outfit that Robin is wearing when she's first introduced. Also, or one of the outfits Robin wears was first worn by Nami. And there was another scene where, for one time only, and throughout the entire series, Nami wore reading glasses. And that was, there was one time. She was also wearing pigtails. Now, How does Usopp supposedly foreshadowing Frankie Elbaf? Well, Usopp mentioned, several times when they had to go in there, mentioned about how they need to get the ship right. Obviously the fact that, Usopp is so fascinated with the Elbaf warriors kind of, can somewhat be considered of a foreshadowing that they're going to be involved. Obviously. Now, Sanji, he foreshadows Brook and Smoker. How? Well, in his flashback, he imagined what it would be like if he were to have died and, become bones. And you see it. And there was one time, there was a scene where one time where he was smoking 3 cigars at once, or not cigars, cigarettes at once, and said a line that was similar to something that might seem like Smoker would say. Now, of course, all this could be coincidence, but Oda, he's the master of foreshadowing and planning. So, now, question: who will be and obviously after they meet, if this is correct, who are the legitimate recruits? The people who or should I say, people that Luffy's going to ask who are legitimately, recruited or asked to be recruited but turned down. Well, he believes it's going to be Kinemon and Momonosuke, whereas he believes that at this point, at least in the theory, that the former Roger Pirate member that they're going to meet is a man by the name of Scobber Gobbin. Now, I know this is going on long enough, but I have to address the 4 characters individually. Now, Jinbei. What are his parallelisms to the first male recruit? Well, when his character was when we first got to see, even though he was talked about back in the Arlong Park arc, we didn't see his character until Impel Down, and when we first saw his character, he was tied in chains. Okay, so he and all the fishermen have the reputation of being monsters, but even Jinbei himself is also considered even more monstrous. Alright, what about, Luffy saving something important to Jinbei? Well, take your pick. There's Noah, Fishman Island, Shirahoshi, Kid Neptune, tons of things. And he fought alongside Luffy and the crew against Horsey Jones and his gang, as well as all the other things Jinbei's been done with Luffy. So he has plenty of interactions. Okay, well, what is his criteria? Does he fit into the criteria of a Straw Hat? Well, is he an outcast? Yes. He's, because of his pirate, because he's no longer a warlord and is a pirate, he can't stay on Fishman Island. What about the tragic past? Well, you could say his dream is that his dream is created from inheriting the will of both, of multiple people, being such Ace, Fisher Tiger, and Orihime. The Queen Orihime and Fisher Tiger gives him his dream of, he's inherited their will to, and that's his dream, which would be to, help create or divide or add improve the relations between humans and fishmen, and get rid of that discrimination and bring the fishmen to the surface, as well as inheriting the will of Ace to protect Luffy, which I guess you can, in a way, is sort of what Sabo's doing, but we'll go on a side note there. And at this point, we'll move on to the 3rd criteria. And as the 3rd criteria states, the potential crew member should at least interact, connect, have a connection with other crew members. Well, Jinbei had a lot of chances to do that with Luffy during the Impel Down and Marineford arcs, and did so with the rest of the crew in the Fishman Island arc. The 4th criteria, Luffy should believe that he or she is a good person. Well, we've already seen that. He saved Luffy multiple times, even gave him blood, which was forbidden, and, he was immediately invited afterwards, so that's obvious. 5, the aftermath of the supposed recruitment arc. Potential crew members should become a fugitive or can't stay. Well, as you know, because Jinbei helped, fight, quit the warlords to help fight, help Whitebeard rescue Ace. He can no longer stay at, and yes, even though, yes, he can no longer stay in, but even though he got his crew with some pirates, it's likely that eventually they might stay at Fishman, after Luffy defeats Big Mom and, is able to officially claim territory over Fishman Island and have it mean something. He will no longer have to worry about, anyone messing with his crew, so he'll allow them to stay at Fishman Island, and most likely they might stay at Fishman Island at the newly closed Fishman District and maybe become the guards of Fishman Island. Something like that. Other ones. Dream. Well, we've already said he wants to the discrimination of the island. He wants to fulfill Ace's dream for Luffy, fulfill the dream of fish return to get fishermen to the surface and erase the division between humans and fishermen. Now he says, so backstory. We've already seen it. Already tragic. Quirk. Well, apparently, you might not necessarily notice, but Jimmy apparently has a thing with naming the missions that they take. And not to mention that he's a modest glutton. Okay. Minor stuff. What are some of the minor stuff? Well, position in the crew. Most people assume that he would be the crew's helmsman, but, Frankie pretty much does it nicely. So, Jimmy's position should be something that nobody else can do. Well, he could be the crew's naval force, since he can handle underwater duties such as underwater sneak attacks, salvaging, and of course, most important of all, saving Luffy and the other crew users from drowning, which Sanji would love since he's usually the one doing it. Anyway, so, color theme, it's whatever. Even though Jimmy's blue, you could say his color theme is magenta because of the Sun Pirates mark on his chest. It's also the color of the scar, so special killing talents. Well, he's a fishman, and, it's fishman karate and merman karate, so, he would then become the crew's fastest swimmer, so. And he also has a lot of knowledge of the new world. And since he knows Luffy, he won't spoil anything, but he'll be able to help them when needed in terms of knowledge of the new world. Possible gags to current Straw Hats. Well, because he loves to plan ahead and Luffy doesn't, butt hens a lot. I mean, we've already seen that in Fishman Island, so that when, as terms of any, unique personality, he's more of a serious crew member, like Robin, but yes, sometimes his character can be considered bland, but that would kind of balance out all the other crazy personalities. Uniqueness and power, of course. Fishman karate. What else to say? And obviously he will join sometime after the conflict with Big Mom ends, which is very soon. Now, you might be saying, well, but Jinbei's too strong. He's stronger than, he could be stronger than Luffy, has a higher bounty. He might upset the balance of the monster trio. Well, instead of, it's possible that Jinbei, since, Jinbei won't join until after the Big Mom Pirates conflict is over, by then, Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji will have gotten a huge boost. And so that maybe Jinbei might be just below them, or might be included in them as the monsters. Instead of being a monster trio, it might be the monster quartet, something like that. Obviously, something that's, we have to address is the fact that Jinbei doesn't have much room for growth in terms of strength. However, you can say he has much to grow in terms of his goal perspective instead of a strength perspective. Now, next thing, Tashigi. Now this is where things are going to get a little, because you're like, well, why Tashigi? Why Tashigi? Now, obviously, you can be skeptic about it because you're not really that impressed with it at the point. But yet you were hyped at the beginning. Well, And you say, oh, Tashigi's too weak. Well, that's one of the main reasons why she would be a legit female candidate. Now, parallelisms to the second female recruit. Well, first of all, like Nami and Robin, Tashigi was introduced as an enemy of the pirates. She was a Marine. Tashigi has not traveled with the Straw Hats yet, but the way the story goes, he's predicting that Tashigi will hop aboard the Straw Hats ship and travel with them between the upcoming events of Dressrosa arc and until the culmination of the Kaido arc. And he has a scenario in mind, and that he will, this is, it's just a guess, but it's, that it's, so, here is the scenario. Y'all know that Sanji and company are in a pinch right now because they met the Big Mom pirates on their way to Zao after escaping Doflamingo. Now, he believes that this is the perfect time to insert Tashigi as a temporary ally because, they're kind of short-handed, right? The Straw Hats on the ship are kind of short-handed. Sanji's injured. Chopper, Nami, and Brook are below Sanji's level, and Momonosuke is pretty much useless. And Caesar is, he's Caesar. He's Caesar. Now, we can assume that Dressrosa and Punk Hazard are neighboring islands because of how quick, the traveling between the two islands seems to be. And if the island where the children live is under the jurisdiction of G5, then that island should also be near Dressrosa and Punk Hazard. Not to mention that Momonosuke got aboard the kidnapped children's boat in Dressrosa, which then proves even more that the children's hometown is near Dressrosa. And last time we saw Tashigi, she was taking the kids home back to their hometown. So this means that it wouldn't be too far-fetched for Tashigi and G5 on the way back to headquarters after sending the kids home would meet Sanji and company. Now, of course, it's safe to assume the Smoker is already back at headquarters and that Aokiji went his own way after Funkasper. So, Shigi will probably aid the Straw Hats against the attack of Big Mom Pirates as a way of paying Sanji back for what he did for her against Virgo, and that she will get aboard a Sunny but accidentally be dragged along the Straw Hats' escape because of her absent-mindedness and the fact that they might escape the Big Mom Pirates with the Queer Burst. This will force her to travel with them / help them through the Zell. Now he theorizes through the Zell arc, Wano Kuni arc, and the Kaido arc, and anything in between, before returning to headquarters. And by that time, she having developed a sense of companionship and real good view of the Straw Hats' kind of justice. Now, that, is yet to be seen. Now, again, Tashigi hasn't worn Luffy's hat yet, but, in the span of time that he predicts that she will travel with him, that will happen. The permanent recruitment of these, girls should be after Major Saga or Luffy and others need to defeat a major adversary in a rescue arc, as well as around a time scenario. Well, he believes that the Straw Hats would rescue Tashigi after the events of the Kaido Doflamingo saga and after Jimmy joins the crew, which means, basically what he says is that, this is where he deviates and kind of says, well, okay, here's my theory. He references another theory, which is basically his timeline for the rest of the series. But basically what it says is that she will, after helping traveling with the Straw Hats and helping them, she will be considered a criminal and be, relieved of her marine duties and, captured and sent to a New World version of Impel Down and be set to executed. And after, Jinbei joins after the Big Mom stuff, we will find out that she is going to be executed and that Luffy's going to go rescue her. And that Smoker, being fed up with the situation with the Marines, will leave the Marines to chase after Luffy out of anger. And there you go. Now, as for Tashigi's Straw Hat criteria, well, she should be outcast. Well, as usual, Smoker and Tashigi are different from the usual Marines. Even though she's got this dedicated black and white perspective about Marines and pirates, she usually does what her conscience tells her to do. And among the G5 battalion, she's pretty much the only reserve person in the group. As for the tragic past and the dream, well, we already know that she has her dream to collect all the sorts of quote-unquote bad guys. Now, if you read between the lines of her dialogue when she's introduced about her dream, something had to happen in her life that caused her something tragic in her life had to happen to make her have this black and want to collect the swords from all the bad guys, and to have this black and white idea about pirates. I mean, doesn't it seem similar? It's similar to what Nami did. Because of what happened to her, she hated pirates and had this whole black and white thing about pirates. Now, she should at least interact, connect, or have some kind of connection with Luffy and other crew members. Well, she's interacted with Luffy at Alabasta and even helped Luffy and the crew multiple times. She was now, you say, oh, well, she was beat up by Robin. Well, Frankie was beat up by Usopp. So maybe, funny twist of fate, Robin and Tashigi will become the best buddies in the crew, just like Frankie and Usopp. The same thing happened in Punk Hazard when Tashigi had loads more interaction with the, Zoro, Sanji, and Nami specifically. With Nami even being, Tashigi even reminding Nami of Bellemere, which it could be another form of foreshadowing that Tashigi might be part of the crew. Remember that. And because think about it, the first one because this would mean that Nami is the first one who really of the crew that liked Tashigi, and in the Drum Island arc, she was the first one to like Chopper, and so far has been the only. This is I feel like an extension as to why I think Nami and Luffy are going to end up together at the end of the series. Nami seems to be somewhat of an extension of Luffy because she's the only other Straw Hat who's ever invited someone to the crew. I believe a good person. Well, as said, Tashigi helped Luffy and other Straw Hats many times, so it wouldn't be too much of a stretch for Luffy to find her to be a good person. The aftermath of the supposed recruit arc turning into a fugitive. Well, after the Kaido arc, she's going to be believed. It would be if this timeline works out the way he says. He says that she will be considered a criminal after the Kaido stuff because she helped the Luffy Law Alliance. Now, this is after, and this happens because Kaido's justice is very strict. And this will also force Smoker and Tashigi to separate for some time, and that the whole thing with, thing in Punk Hazard pretty much, that the Punk Hazard sort of foreshadowed them being apart for a while. Now, now I'm going to mention what happens to Smoker after they separate. I'll talk about in the Smoker section. Now, other potential criteria for, obviously the dream, she's already stated it, which is already connected to Zoro's dream, in a way, because Zoro has one of them. Backstory, obviously something tragic had to have happened to her to make her want to collect the sword specifically from bad guys. In One Piece, as we've seen, there's no such thing as just pure evil or just pure good. And I just want to achieve that dream for no deep story. It doesn't exist. So there should always her quirks. Well, she has her bad eyesight. She's a klutz, absent-minded, and apparently she loves recording stuff, especially when it comes to swords. The minor stuff, the position. Well, obviously it would be funny if she became a lookout because, in the crow's nest, because that's funny to see the interaction between her and Zoro while he trains all day. She could also be, you could say, oh, well, maybe because she likes to record stuff, maybe she could be a journal keeper. Well, Nami does that already, so that's kind of, and as we discussed, two swordsmen, another swordsman wouldn't hurt either, because, Oda, as we talked about earlier, Oda planned for 3 swordsmen to be in the crew, as well as a melee fighting female. So, I guess that would kind of make her fit the bill. And her color scheme was kind of like indigo, which is kind of like a combination, somewhat dark combination of violet and blue, which is funny because it kind of gives the connection to the people who might be her closest friends on the group, which would be Sanji and Robin, maybe. Special skills and talents. Well, when it comes to sword, seems to be very detailed and have good memories, even though she has a bad eyesight, so that could translate to other things too. And she does have, some of the, 6 power techniques such as Sora, so she can move fast, and and with her sword, even though she might at the current time she's a sword wielder, average sword wielder, these things can combine to produce a better, a decent combat fighter for the Straw Hats, as well as her best quality being that she's, has a very kind nature. Possible guys with Straw Hats, any of them. I mean, just the things, just her quirks alone and her personality would create a endless amount of gags for the other Straw Hats, especially, with, between she and Zoro's relationship, the whole fact that she looks like Kuina. So that's a whole other thing. Her personality being that it would be a good thing because she would balance out the female personalities very well. Nami has a very bossy, super girly, and vulgar personality, whereas Robin, very sophisticated, sultry, and morbid attitude. It would be kind of like a breath of fresh air to have Tashigi's modest, sweet, innocent, reserved, and somewhat boyish character. And as terms of uniqueness of power, I mean, how many female sword wielders do we have in this series? So, and as for final thoughts, would be a good addition to the crew. She has a lot of room for improvement, both in growth in terms of both personality and strength, as well having and it's even part of her character that she's all about getting stronger to break free from the norms against women and the freedom to think what is right and what is wrong. Because as we saw in the Punk Hazard arc, she's lost stage that weaklings can't choose how they die, and that both she and Smoker are very dynamic characters. Because in the beginning, when they were first introduced, they were Marines are always right, Pirates are always bad. And as they gradually changed, we get to Punk Hazard where, now they're like, well, don't draw a line between good and bad. So, now because these people, Tashigi and Smoker in Block Town were reviewing pirates as evil people. Then they, when they get to Alabasta, she starts questioning herself as to why pirates are saving the country and why the Marines are so helpless, to even till the Marine Fourth War, where she's questioning which is really evil and good, and having feasting with the pirates in Punk Hazard. And yes, Tashigi and Smoker are still loyal to the Marines. You can't dispute the fact that they are questioning themselves right now on what true justice is, and that there could be a possible full turn for these characters, for these changes, a full turn for these characters happening soon that will change these characters, and that it's once again it'll be Tashigi will most likely travel with Straw Hats between the events of Dressrosa, after the end of Dressrosa, Wanakune, Kaido arc, and then eventually will join once in her own quote-unquote rescue arc. And just as a funny thing, remember what Robin's or Usopp's lie to Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji in the Thriller Bark arc? Hey, look, a beautiful swordswoman has come with me. Well, if she joins the crew, she would be a beautiful swordswoman, and she could possibly carry me at some point. So, of course, we'll go a little bit more into that, into Tashigi's involvement in the Smoker section. Now, as for the Elbaf Warrior, his section is going to be kind of short because we haven't seen any. So, you don't really need a long explanation because we can't really at this point predict what the character's personality and appearance would turn out to be. And, we don't know if it's going to be a giant or a human. And we can't, give a thought as to what his dream or tragic past might be. Because that would just turn into a fanboy wish list. But, what makes him believe that the third recruit from the New World is going to be Elbaf Warrior is probably because of his theory of where Pluton was. Thinking that, okay, maybe Pluton was in Elbaf. But if you want to read more about that, you have to actually look into his theory on that. And the parallelisms, the other reason is the parallelism to the third recruit. The parallelism, anyway. Let's review now, he briefly discusses some points as to, let us review, he says, let us review the things I mentioned in my other theories and in the first 4 parts of this theory. Pluton, he believes that Pluton, during the events of the Void Century, was hid by Elbaf warriors in Elbaf. The visit to Elbaf was foreshadowed over and over again throughout the whole series. In the pattern of the third male recruit, Usopp and Frankie were recruited after a crew acquired a new ship, and Pluton is supposedly a warship that can create large-scale destruction. and Nico Robin knew where Pluton's warship was located. Frankie burned the blueprints for Pluton, so the only chance the Straw Hats will acquire Pluton is if they find the actual Pluton ship. And Oda also loves Vikings, which is the reason apparently why he decided to start drawing One Piece, and that the Elbaf Warriors closer are based off of Viking and Norse mythology. And, warship and Vikings, perfect combination. He also believes that Pluton is based on Hades, the god of the underworld in Greek mythology, but also based off Surt, who is a fire giant that would come on Ragnarok to end the world. It also makes sense that the that the weapon that would end the world and create a new one would come from a place that was based on Norse mythology. Now, here are some things that he'll assume we must assume with the parallels with the recruit. He believes that the Elbaf recruit will be connected in some way to the former owner of the Straw Hats. He assumes that, and you got to remember, the Elbaf giants can live for 300 years is their average lifespan. So he assumes that the Elbaf recruit's father or grandfather might have been associated with Joy Boy, which he believes to be another owner of the Straw Hat. That the original owner of the Straw Hat, as he believes. He believes that Luffy will find Pluton in Elbaf, even though it might be unfinished, it's still a new ship. Yes, because then that'll signal the recruit of a new member. Because, Luffy acquiring Gormari along with Usopp, Frankie with Sunny. Now, he's not saying that they'll abandon Sunny, because based on Frankie's dream, and everything that's happened so far, it's obviously the last ship the Straw Hats will have. Plus, at the time they find Pluton, it'll be unfinished. The point is that Pluton will be instrumental in the final war, and the Straw Hats. This theory involves the Straw Hats obtaining it to use in the final war in the Elbaf arc, thus also recruiting an Elbaf warrior. Which, if you want to really find out more about that, you got to go into his other theories. And it'll also help them acquiring Pluton will help perfectly make much logical sense, and will help fall into place about what the next Straw Hat recruit would be, which is he believes to be Smoker. Now, what happened to Smoker? Well, this ties into the he believes that Smoker, after he leaves the Marine, will join the Revolutionaries. Now, I'll discuss later what my opinion of that is, but whatever. He feels that them finding Pluton will trigger Dragon needing to meet Luffy, and thus Luffy meeting Smoker as a revolutionary, Smoker meeting Robin after finding out more about Robin from Dragon, and Smoker developing his dream, which I'll talk about later. Yes, the whole idea about getting a recruit from Elbaf is Luffy also acquiring Pluton. It's simple, but makes sense. The only things I can predict he's going to predict on the Elbaf characters recruit is that they'll have a color theme of brown, which would fit perfectly with Pluton being supposedly being underground. Now, and that he also believes that the character from Elbaf will not have a devil fruit ability, because he feels that the last recruit that we're going to get Smoker is going to be the last fruit user of the crew. Now, Smokers is going to be, I'm going to try and go through as quickly as possible. Now, of course, the biggest argument against this is the fact that people believe Smoker is the Garble. But we'll go through that later. He believes that, it shouldn't be too long until Smoker becomes the main protagonist, hence joining the Straw Hats, and that he believes that Smoker and Luffy have a similar relationship to that of Vegeta and Goku. And not to mention that the personalities and characters seem eerily similar to the perfect main rival team-up trope relationship, which is a staple in shonen. Now, here are some things that are obvious about Smoker up front. Smoker and Tashigi are dynamic characters. That Smoker was used for two things in the series before he turns into a main protagonist, and that pretty much Luffy and Smoker are two different sides of the same coin. Now, where is parallelism to the fourth character, or fourth recruit? Well, he was introduced holding something that produces smoke, the cigars. And this is where we have to make assumptions. Do you guys remember about how Tashigi's recruitment and the scenarios I did? Well, Smoker went to the Revolutionaries, right? This is where he believes that the connection will come in, and that the connection to the floating vessel will parallel that he gave about Sunny and Brook in the making. You know, as he said before, Tashigi will join the Straw Hats, or travel with the Straw Hats during the Kaido stuff. Will be relieved from the Marines and be captured, in which will result in Smoker getting fed up with the Marine system and quitting in order to join the Revolutionaries, while the Straw Hats rescue Tashigi, and that when they meet him, he will be on Dragon's ship, hence the ship thing. The next thing is we have to assume is, Smoker's backstory, because since it hasn't been revealed yet, we, there has to have been something that caused him to have this relationship with, his own thing about being black and white about pirates. Now, this guy, Beck26, assumes that, maybe Smoker might have been raised by pirates, and that somewhere along the way he was, for whatever reason, started hating pirates. And now let's take a look at Smoker's, and there's reason for that. Now, referring to the scenario he made, referring back to the scenario above, he can't accurately guess what happens, but somehow, someway, the parallel of the Straw Hats ship being stolen will happen around Smoker's recruitment arc. 1,000 Island might be taken by the revolutionaries to lead Luffy and the Dragon, just, some wild guess. Now, if you go back to the first part of the theory, I mentioned that Oda should need someone who would have a dream of changing the world, and Smoker fits the bill, and though Smoker only may realize how he fulfills his goal after the crew reaches Raftel and Robin unlocks the Rio Poneglyphs, Smoker will have a single destination, and if he wants to change the world. Okay. Obviously, marry Joe. Now, Luffy has not mentioned any specific position except for cook and musician, but has always mentioned that the crew should take things more seriously and plan ahead. They want to survive in the new world, and Smoker could fit that role. Things that that held Smoker back is his loyalty and pride to his group before, which were from the Marines, and in his recruitment mark might be his loyalty to the revolutionaries. It fits perfectly with his character. Now, even though some people firmly believe that Smoker's Luffy Scarf, he disagrees. And he sees Smoker more as the Marines' version of Monkey D. Luffy. And he sees that Smoker and Tashigi seriously have a view on things eerily similar to Straw Hats. Now, as for Smoker's Straw Hat criteria, is he an outcast or troublemaker on his tab? Well, even though he's a Marine, currently at the moment a Marine, he's kind of like a rebel. As for, his dream, well, there should be some deep reason as to why Smoker got this generalization about pirates, and that he might have been raised by pirates and wanted to be one, but something changed his mind. There should be a reason why Smoker would say to Tashigi, no matter how far a pirate goes, he still is a pirate. Now, they should have, he's had plenty of interaction with the Straw Hats, especially Luffy. And that they would most likely be fire-forged friend type thing. And he's already said that, that he doesn't hate him. He said, even in Alabasta, it says, you're not getting away this, Smoke's like, you're not getting away this time. And Luke's like, I don't hate you after all. Now, next thing. The aftermath of his supposed arc. Well, he says Smoker's going to become a revolutionary, so how could his recruitment arc, cause him to leave the revolutionaries to join the Straw Hats? Well, he believes in this theory that Monkey Dragon will tell him to join the crew, and that Dragon will lift his version of misplaced pride and loyalty. And that'll connect to all the other scenarios. Some other potential criteria of dream. As Smoker's dream will become that to change the world, and after Nico Robin finds Bruno Pono, it'll develop into bringing Mary Jo down to change the world. But I'm pretty sure he'll know that sooner. That's how I feel, at least. In terms of his backstory, we've already said it many times before, but to add one thing, though, it's, if you think about the symbolism of Smoker's character, and that is, in a drawing Oda made of Smoker as a kid, he has a dog. And that it seems like this makes some connection to Smoker and Shushu from the Buggy arc, and this is how they're similar. He feels they're similar. Shushu and Luffy fought or quarreled. This is similar to how Luffy and Smoker are rivals. If there's someone who attacks Shushu's treasure, let's say Smoker's treasure is Tashigi, because Smoker values his Nakama.
Luffy saves Shishui's treasure. In this theory, Luffy will save Tashigi. Shishui left the place he stayed for a long time, which for Smoker would be the Marines. And the next time Shishui appeared, he's now protecting Luffy from the townsfolk. This is what will be represented by Smoker supposedly joining Luffy. And as well, Sushui's flashback involves Brown being left alone, and I believe that this might be correlated to Smoker's flashback. Being his abandonment might lead to him hating pirates. And wait, what? Smoker leaving the Marines? What makes you say that? Well, the reason why he believes that is his, hardcore loyalty, and that the fact that in pride, but that the fact that he's a rebellious guy, and that even in the Punk Hazard arc, Law said something to Smoker that foreshadows his blind loyalty being broken soon. Smoker went from something, to someone who generalizes pirates, saying, pirates will always be pirates, to a guy who scolds his men for drawing a line between good and bad. Now, and multiple times throughout the series, Smoker has stated his disappointment about the world government, and he's even started to uncover and realize corruptions. And Smoker knows how rotten the system of the world is, but he remains loyal because purely of his loyalty and faith upon Marines. But Smoker's dynamic character might take, his change was even foreshadowed by Akuji when he said, "I can make an impact and influence matters without the veil of the Marines. They say the grass is always greener on the other side. Well, in my case, it's actually true." And Smoker responded, "I just died a little on the inside." So, and how now Quirk. Apparently, Smoker has this weird thing about balancing rocks, and for some reason he likes doorbells. Minor stuff. Position and crew. There's many possibilities. Strategist, jailer, wiretapper. Color theme. Gray. Could be white, but Brooke got that. Special skills and talents. He's a very good detective. He can do these things right on target. Very good observational skills. Good ear. Very skilled fighter. Good at spying and wiretapping calls. He's skilled at connecting things together and reading the situation. And like Straw Hat, Smoker can predict like every other Straw Hat, Smoker can predict what Luffy's thinking, which could be a very good quality for him. And has a lot of knowledge about world government, possibly with current Straw Hat. There's many possibilities, but the best one is he brings to the table is the frenemy relationship he'll have with Luffy. Because he'll butt heads with Luffy like no one else has in the crew, which will bring a new level of dimension and interaction with the crew. And we don't need to necessarily worry about Smoker being under Luffy, because Luffy doesn't really act like he's above everyone else. Unique personality. It would also add another badass personality to the crew, and would bring a serious rebel type personality that would help stabilize the rest of the crew's male crew members' personalities. Uniqueness and power. Finally, we'd get a Logie up with the crew, and it's not a super OP Logie either. As for some additional thoughts, first of all, there are a few things you have to talk about Smoker. Why would Smoker be revolutionary, and why would he obey Dragon if Dragon orders him to draw the Straw Hats? Well, if you want to find out about that, you gotta click on another theory about Smoker's relationship with Dragon and Aokiji. Smoker is Luffy's guard. This one I'm pretty much going to summarize. I've been trying to summarize. This is definitely an arc, and there's even though that Oda's never said any solid proof, he does believe and agree that Smoker is, and see that Smoker could be Luffy's. He doesn't believe that or agree that or even see that Smoker is the real Luffy's guard. He was at the start of the series because Smoker was used for two things. One, to introduce the struggle of Luffy against Logies and ultimately showcasing the superiority of Logies in the Grand Line. The second was to be the temporary garb of Luffy's generation while Luffy's true garb was groomed. And if it's not Smoker, who's Luffy's real garb? He believes it'll be Kobe. And I kind of sort of agree with it, because when I think about, the final arc and, all these various fights, I'm like, oh, Luffy has to fight Smoker, he has to fight Aokiji, he's gonna have to fight Blackbeard, Shanks, Kobe. Like, there's so many people he has to fight. And like, okay, well, if Smoker is a part of the crew, he doesn't have to fight him. He has to fight Kobe, as Kobe being his guard. And if you want to really talk about, go into that whole reason as to why he feels Kobe over, you're gonna have to read it more, because I've already gone on long enough. And and now, so okay, so now that you guys asked yourself this, and then Smoker is definitely going to be defeated by Luffy before Luffy takes on Shanks, Akainu, the Gorosei, Kobe, and Blackbeard. Now, Smoker and Luffy might be equal in strength or not, but two things are definite. Smoker's only advantage over Luffy is intangibility, and Luffy has many bigger rivals than Smoker to deal with. The point he's trying to make is that he thinks Luffy will defeat Smoker in the next meeting, and that Luffy foreshadowed him and Smoker will finally fight, in the Punk Hazard arc. And I'm sure as hell that they'll have their final fight before the bigger rivals appear. And then, that whole thing, so... And that by being defeated by Luffy, he'll fail in his mission to capture Luffy, and with Smoker's character who's full of pride, this will mean the rivalry will become over. And that Smoker might try and say, oh, kill me, but no, he won't. Luffy will say, if Smoker joins in the Revolutionaries arc, as predicted, Luffy would most probably be, he predicts that this will be the halfway point in the New World then. And how could he merge with the crew in a short amount of time? Well, this is the part where I start to disagree with him more and more, this theory, and that's a time skip. He predicts that there's another time skip coming with the crew, and that would after Smoker joins. Now, I agree that there's a possibility that Oda might do another time skip, but this guy believes the time skip will be 7 to 9 years, which I disagree with. Now, he gives several things as to, certain things that he believes that this will allow, but I think that could still happen with, either in the course of the series without a time skip or within a 1 to 2 year time skip. He says this will give time for Kobe to become proper time to develop, which we haven't even seen what Kobe can do after the first time skip. So for all you know, he could, he might not. He's not Vice Admiral at this point. But since in the manga we haven't seen what he can do, he could be, it's quite possible he could become Vice Admiral in a few arcs. The other reason why he says he needs a time skip. Well, Goldie Roger acquired One Piece when he was 30, and Luffy's only 19, so you need another long time skip to make Luffy older. Well, I believe that theory is just stupid because, again, Luffy's supposed to be like Roger, but he's also supposed to do things Roger couldn't do, so that's why I feel like Luffy's going to get it sooner rather than later. Luffy supposedly has to also develop his ability to hear all things, the voice of all things. That is supposedly, he believes, needs to enter the Ractal and to be accurate, his and his crew's overall strength. Well, like I said, not all the crew has gone at full out. Like Zoro, Luffy is definitely going to go all out against Doflamingo. But I don't feel like, none of the other crew has had to go all out yet, so we don't know exactly what their full potential is, so that it's a little iffy. He says this is also needed to give the crew time to bond and develop. Well, it's not necessarily necessary, so, because they bond pretty quickly, and and that this will give time for Luffy to become actually seriously become serious this time. And that it would take time to create or make Pluton. And apparently, he feels that Luffy and Dragon need more connection because of need more time to spend together to make a bigger connection. Now, this is the thing that I highly disagree with to the umpteenth degree. And that is his reasoning as to why Luffy would have to become even more serious. Because this guy believes that Sabo will die, and that losing another loved one, and this supposedly will happen during the events of Smoker's recruitment, will help to set up the meeting between Luffy and Dragon and Smoker and start off the time skip. I don't like that, and that he believes that part of this theory is that one way or another that Kobe will get the Marinelli after. The main thing that I don't like about that is the fact that if Kobe is supposed to be Luffy's Garp, Garp doesn't use Devil Fruit powers, so by extension, if Kobe is to be Luffy's Garp, he should also not use a Devil Fruit ability. So this is where things get, Now, as a final thought about Smoker, he does feel that Smoker would be a good fit with his principle. He shares a lot of the same principles and attitudes with everyone in the crew, and that his dream would become one of the most important goals in the series. And if you just keep an open mind about the evidence predictions of these final 4 recruits, he thinks there's a very big possibility that these all connections and falls properly with all of his other theories if you want to read them. Of course, you could be spending days reading them. And, and I think Smoker would not only be a final addition to the crew, but also would be to add it to the monster group of the crew and give the Straw Hats its 5 strongest combat fighters in the series: Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, Jinbei, and Smoker. So there's a lot, of detail about, there's a ton more stuff about, his fifth about Smoker and, stuff like that. So there's tons and tons of information. There's tons of more information about Smoker. Now, this has already been going on long enough, and this end up being a separate video from the main podcast. But how I believe is that I like this theory a lot because it shows a lot of details about things like the characters, introductions, and how they were introduced and stuff like that. So, keeping that in mind, this is an important thing to me, and I like it. There's a lot of research, and it's very believable that these are the characters that are going to join. However, just like with any other theory, these theories could then apply to certain other characters. I'm saying that the models are good, but I don't necessarily always agree with timelines, especially when it involves Smoker's recruitment and how Sabo will die. So I'm sorry for all this rambling on, but if you want to really read the whole thing and every little detail and get lost in all of his other theories that are connected to this theory or even involved with this theory, then click the link in the box below and read it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review of a theory review, and hope to see you guys next